Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD, Get You Done Venture Studios, premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, one of the first generative AI companies, pre-transformer model formed in 2016. We believe at GST that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. And with that, I'd like to introduce my incredible guest. Nicole DeMeo is a consulting chief marketing officer and senior marketing and communications executives. She helps people and companies fund, create clarity in their mind, brand positioning and messaging, develop go-to-market strategy and crisis communications plans for resilience, continuity, and growth to drive revenue and increase valuation. She's an accomplished business launch, growth, and turnaround expert and a C-level contributor working with the likes of Steve Jobs. Oh, that'll be interesting to talk about that. Go-to-market strategist and advisor. She works closely with executive teams to guide strategy and growth. And as a veteran of Silicon Valley, she's developed strategies and guided companies through multiple stages and phases of their life cycles with over 20 years worth of experience. She's orchestrated over 50 company launches, including 4 of her own, and have created significantly increased valuations, acquisitions, and IPOs. She's worked with the likes of Steve Jobs, Eric Schmidt, and Carly Fiorina. So with that, I'd like to bring my friend Nicole on. Hi, Nicole.
Hello, Gary.
So how did you go from Golden Gate University? So you got your master's degree there, right?
Yeah.
But how did you go from there to working for Next Computer? What was that like? I know you were a Porter Novelli, but how was that?
Yeah. Gary, I hit, when I was in undergrad, I hit in graduate school, I hit the technology industry at a really amazing time. It was when software was really being developed to connect everyone, and the internet was a glimmer, and it was connecting everyone. And I got to, work on some incredible pieces of business. And I also forged my way into working with, companies like Next. But what happened was I interned and I fell in love with technology. And I was at Ogilvy and Mather, and I was working on really big pieces of business. And as a very young person, I went to then work for yet another agency where I worked on the Sun Microsystems business. That's when I worked with our friend Eric Schmidt, and that executive team, which was incredible. John Gage, Ed Zander, just really incredible leaders there. And, what was amazing was they were very gracious about allowing me to always be in the room. I didn't necessarily always have a seat at the table. I had to kind of force my way or forge my way into that situation. But I really got in there, and they took me in, and I ended up writing speeches for the executive team at Sun because serendipitously another woman had to go out on maternity leave. So those were the types of things I was getting into. And then I started working for Porter Novelli. And at that time, the commercial internet was just starting to take off. And so I worked on Wells Fargo Bank, launching their very first online presence. A lot of people think that they were the first in the country because, we did a good job of branding and telling that story. But one of my clients was Next. And Next, of course, at the time, Steve Jobs was at the helm, and his personal brand was probably at its all-time low. I mean, people just weren't necessarily trusting his, his products, his, what he was doing. And I got to, be in a part of that organization and helped from, I always said that Next had 3 lives. I helped tell the story of Next being a hardware company, which is how he launched it out of Apple, to an enterprise software company. And then I helped with the transition from enterprise software to the internet. And a lot of people don't realize that the commercial internet was, was founded by Tim Berners-Lee on a Next computer in Switzerland. So we ran around the world, told the story of the origin, developed an incredible product called Web Objects, and Steve on the stage of all the top internet shows and publications. And after that time and some great success, I'll never forget the launch of Web Objects. We got him on the cover of Business Week, albeit it was with Bill Gates, which was amazing. But he was also on the cover of Wired and Red Herring during that week. And it was a really important pivotal point in his career coming back. And we had this new message about building the backbone of the commercial internet. So I was really fortunate to work on that. I mean,
How
just
was he, Nicole? How was he really to work with? Because I hear a lot of I've heard a lot of stories from my friends. How was he at that time at Next when he didn't have the same visibility? How was he to work with? Was he tough? Was he nice? Was he mean? And what was he like?
yeah, it's interesting, Gary, because there are so many stories out there about him. And when we worked together, he asked me, he said, Nick, I'd appreciate it if maybe you didn't contribute to all the books and that kind of stuff. And that was just because he wanted everything to be about the business and the business we were building together. So he was my CEO. And was he tough? And did he have the highest standards on planet Earth? Absolutely. But what did that do? It made us all raise our standards. It made us all produce probably the best work of our lives and careers.
Mhm.
And he wasn't mean. It was astounding to me that those stories unfortunately traveled further, right?
Mhm.
But when I went to a couple of his life celebrations, it was nothing but stories of loyalty, dedication, growth, friendship as a leader. And that's how I experienced him. I had to we would get anywhere from 25 on a slow week to 200 requests for Steve's time when I was working with him and about personal stuff. So we would say, absolutely not. This is about the business and what we're building, and we'd veer it in that direction. But I'd have to boil it down to 3 opportunities. That's it every week. What was best for the business, what was best for the employees, what was best for all the stakeholders, the clients. And we just would banter about them, and invariably maybe one would be accepted, but I learned and I learned and I learned, and he took the time and he really showed us different ways of doing things. And I mean, how fortunate, that I was able to work with him and report to him directly as a marketing professional. And we got to tell some incredible stories, you
Mhm.
know, and that ultimately was a big part of what led to, the Apple acquisition. It wasn't just
How
that.
was that, Nicole, going from Next to Apple? What was that like? By the way, I had Daniel Kotke on my show. I've been with him a few times, and so I've heard some interesting stories, right? And but
Yeah.
how was it going from Next to Apple?
Yeah, I mean, here, when I joined Next and when I was working with him, when I was at the agency, his personal brand really at a low. And, we asked reporters to just understand that if you look at an entrepreneur's journey, not every single time, will they will be successful, right? They're just not going to. And so we, we were getting really good at telling our story around the commercial internet. And so his visibility was much more significant. I mean, we were getting keynotes, as I mentioned, covers of magazines, what have you. I think that was helpful, right? And then lo and behold, Apple needed this operating system. And
Mhm.
so it was a really junior person, my colleagues, John and Garrett Rice and John Landwehr, that went in and said, you know what, Apple needs this OS. We have an OS, and we've been making great traction with our internet technologies, and we know that they could really use those as well.
Mhm.
Um, because of it being so the earliest days in the late 90s of the commercial internet. And so we got in there and got that meeting. And Steve even allowed my colleagues to make the call to Ellen Hancock, the CTO at the time, to introduce that. So we had a nice package, and they clearly made a very nice acquisition with Next, in so many regards. And I think I've mentioned this to you before, but we were actually in a quiet period. We were about to go public. I had literally just written the prospectus and
Wow,
written
that's
the word
amazing.
out. So I knew the value, of the business, and we were completely ready to tell that story because we had the prospectus in hand and bankers lined up and the whole thing.
So how was it? How did they treat people going from Next to Apple in terms of stocks and stuff? Did they give you shares in Apple? And at the time, it was like $2 a share or whatever, right? I remember.
Yeah, yeah, it was, and we got a lot of shares. And we were able to, I was able to do some friends and family and things like that, which was meaningful to my family members. But I sort of decided that I wasn't going to be greedy. And I told my family members to sell at around $12 a
Oh
share,
my gosh! But still,
right?
that's four,
But
six times
that's
what it was, right? It was $2.
right. Let's
Yeah.
be real there. So, ultimately, maybe I was able to purchase a little nicer house, and I have had an incredible life, and I've worked with incredible professionals. So I don't look back at that, but I do laugh about the fact that, the stock price was, a couple bucks, and
Yeah, yeah, I
you
remember
know,
$2. My friend bought $20,000 worth, and he held on to it, and
mm,
he still has it actually.
oh
And
wow,
he
good
bought
move.
it at the time. I remember when he did it, he said, "Oh, you should do it." And I said, "I don't know about this thing with Steve Jobs, but hey, listen, that happens. Life's life." So as you're going, how was it? As you're going down through, you went from to Hewlett Packard, to this behemoth at the time. How was it after going for somebody that's very entrepreneurial to working for a corporation that's less entrepreneurial?
Yeah, good question. So that was Janine Moss, my business partner in Outfront Solutions. We also had a consultancy, and so we were consulting to HP. They wanted to hire somebody to lead their brand positioning and messaging for all their business units. And so we convinced them to, get a couple of brains and an agency on it so that we could really, blow out that program. And it was very significant culture shock. I'll be honest. The organization moved exponentially more slowly. They were a lot more careful and calculated. However, we were working with HP at a time where Shane Robeson was there as the CTSO, and Vicky Pachera was in there on partnerships and strategies. And they were just out there and they were very entrepreneurial. And so consequently, we worked on some incredible positioning and messaging and branding challenges. Things like the HP Accenture partnership, which, on the surface could look pretty competitive and what have you. We ended up very successfully telling that story, and it was a multi-billion-dollar partnership among the two. We
Wow.
Subsequently, we ended up going and doing and working on the positioning and messaging for Accenture and like 13 of their business units. But it was challenging to be in that corporate environment. But what we did is we brought in these processes and methodologies that I'm happy to tell you about, that now we're combining with AI in meaningful ways. And what it did is it brought out the best of the organization and the leaders, such that their messaging was really strong. And one of the things I actually loved about working with Carly Fiorina was she was a little on the mean side. I'll be honest about
Really?
that one. However, she stuck to messaging. And so when we gave her, talking points, a script, speeches, what have you, she really stuck to it. And it ended up playing out well. She actually carried that messaging into her political campaigns years later, which I thought was really funny
Wow,
because
that's interesting. Now, who was worse, Steve Jobs or Carly Fiorina?
by far Carly Fiorina.
Really? No kidding.
Yeah.
That's amazing. She's
Yeah.
difficult, huh? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's just both high standards, and listen, I am the biggest advocate of female leadership in the CEO position and strategy positions. And she just had a little bit of a, more strict manner. And it wasn't as collegial.
You're saying it nicely. That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about where you are today in Outfront Solutions and the kind of things that you're doing and how you're helping these companies.
Yeah, thanks. I'm loving what we're doing. I'm so grateful that I fall in love with what I do every day. I always give that advice to entrepreneurs, and thankfully, I'm living it. But we're working with enterprises like Redfin is a client, the real estate company. Omnicom is a client.
Mhm.
We're working with Omnicom, the one of the biggest marketing and communications organizations in the world, and doing a lot of positioning and messaging groups, leading new business units through their processes for their go-to-market strategies. And then also we're working with a good handful of just really inspiring startups. One company called Hoopt that I'm really Hoopt that I'm really excited about sharing with the world. They're in beta now, but it's a neat app that helps you, with your fun time, your free time, and really learns about you and makes some solid suggestions, and is more of a personal SaaS platform. So, we often specialize in doing things that have never been done before and helping, leaders with telling those stories. And then our teams come in and help with, things like customer acquisition, really the implementation, or we point to our partners, which is, very much the case.
No, that's great. And as you've gone down through this journey, what are the lessons that you've learned and how to deal with these corporate executives? What kind of if you could say there's 3 lessons out there, what would those 3 lessons be that you've learned in dealing with some of the most powerful people worldwide in technology?
Yeah, I mean, um one of the things that we also do is we introduce AI technologies in everything we do. So we still have the same processes and methodologies we might have employed, 15 years ago, But we're layering that with AI technologies. And I'm always seeking to work with leaders who are embracing and open to hearing about, new technologies that can make what we do with them, or, their, support their leadership. And so it's a technology forward CEO that, or leadership team that really works well. We work well with them, and that resonates. Um, and I would say that, learnings from them, it's so powerful to just sit back and listen. One of the executives that we work with at Omnicom is Chris Foster. And I always tell him, whenever I get on a call with him, I feel like I get a macroeconomics lesson because of the things that he sees. And I think a lot of times we our job is to help unearth and tell the story of what the CEO sees. And yes, sometimes that can be a bit in a specific, ecosystem or vacuum. And a lot of times our job is to show them things outside of it. But it's always absolutely fascinating to, get the deep dive in their areas of expertise. I mean, it's been so interesting and so fun doing a deep dive in the real estate market, with Redfin, because of what's happening with the National Real Estate Association, and
Some of the
you know,
changes taking place with commissions on realtors, right? They're changing the whole way that they get compensated.
yeah, and there's a huge opportunity to monetize their and work with their audiences in a really respectful, user and audience-centric way. And so we're helping to conceive of some of those ideas along with our partner client, internally. So that's a joy, and, there's great learnings there.
No, so you're going down through this journey. You've seen a lot of things. You've seen a lot of, from the internet and the early 90s when it was just an idea, then the
Yeah.
World Wide Web, and on all the changes taking place. What is one characteristic of those senior level executives that you think is critically important in order to build a $1 billion company? So if you look at Jobs and Carly and all the other folks that you've dealt with, Scott McNeely or Schmidt, what's one characteristic you find in all of them that's different than everybody else?
Well, every single one of them, and Chris Foster's in that bucket as well, they've always been open to new technologies. Like, literally, we would find something interesting out in the world, and that was the time that we could literally run into Steve Jobs' office and say, "Check out this technology, it's amazing." And he would delight in it, and so they all had that in common. There was a significant openness to the technologies and how they're transformative, and running their businesses. And also just an openness and willingness to let the best idea win. It didn't matter who it came from across the organization, but, it could come from a, consultant, or, you know, partner like, myself. It could come from somebody junior in the organization, but literally every single one of those people has an openness, that I think, is really important to how they run the organization, and staying in touch and staying relevant and having their thumb on the pulse of what's going on. So those are the most successful ones that I've seen.
So what's the future look like, Nicole? What's next for you?
Well, we're really enjoying employing technology to everything that we're doing. We're finding that marketing went through a massive overhaul during the pandemic, coming out of it, just because of everything going digital. There were, in 2011, I think there were 150 marketing technology tools. Today, there's over 11,000. And so we're employing all these different technologies, but we're doing it in a way that our clients are seeing everything is massively more predictable and scalable. And so we're able to know in advance what topics people care about, so that all of our campaigns and external communications are converting so much better. And we're able to do some analysis and measurement, go back and optimize. And, really things are massively, more predictable and scalable is what I would say the biggest change is. And I'm loving bringing that to clients.
Wow, that's great. So, closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah. Well, a good way to get in touch with us is to go to our website. It's Outfront. It's www.outfront.solutions. No .com, just Outfront Solutions. And then also follow us on LinkedIn. We have a conversation with communities like your viewers and listeners. And we love to stay in touch that way and share information, findings around the topics that we just talked about, marketing technologies, what have you. So yeah, and follow me, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm super happy to engage there.
Thanks a lot. Nicole, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And thanks to all my viewers for joining one more time. GSD presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back to you again on Thursday with another exciting edition. Thanks. Appreciate it, Nicole. And thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Be well, everyone.